guarding a nation's borders. We'll be there, followed by more. Be blessed, we'll on, we carry on. Boys, nothing will stop the Army Air Force.
Can you tell me a little about yourself, about Pearl Harbor Day, December 7th, 1941, what you were doing and what you were thinking, and all about your life then?
Yeah, I remember it quite well. I was at the tennis court. We were living in West Hollywood at the time, and the pro shop had a radio which announced the attack by the Japanese at Pearl Harbor, and right away I was thinking about my draft status, which was exempt at the time because we kids, there were three of us kids, were contributing to the family and working, and so I had an exempt status, but I was, like everyone else, caught up in the reaction of the attack, and that we all wanted to contribute, so we were quite anxious to get involved.
If you had a deferment, why did you enlist? What motivated you to enlist?
I thought I wanted to fly. I'd never been off the ground, but I always thought I would like to be a pilot. And at that time, I had just graduated high school, and in order to qualify for flight school, you had to be a college graduate, and I was not. The only other alternative was to enlist. And so I decided that, while I was working at the time, I decided that I would enlist, and so I could qualify for flight school.
And you chose the Air Force as your mode of enlisting?
Yes, yes. I applied to the Army. They had headquarters in West LA then, and I completed my application and was accepted as an aviation cadet.
Can you tell me a little about what it was like? Did you go into basic training in the cadet program, or where did you start, and how many months did you stay in training? And
well, at that time, all the enlistees from California were being sent to Santa Ana, which was the closest classification base in Los Angeles. I thought that I would have a great time coming home in my new uniform and showing it off to my folks. It so happened we were the first contingent that was sent out of California. It was sent to other than Santa Ana. We were sent on troop train all the way across the country.
Can you tell me a little about yourself, about Pearl Harbor Day, December 7th, 1941, what you were doing and what you were thinking, and all about your life then?
Yeah, I remember it quite well. I was at the tennis court.
In your pilot training in B-17, you were stationed where?
Well, first we met our crew. We were sent to Salt Lake City. I met my crew for the first time, which consisted of the bombardier, navigator, and six gunners. And from there, from Salt Lake City, we were stationed. We were sent to Roswell, New Mexico, for transition training in the B-17. And I had my first ride in B-17. Never thought I'd be able to handle it after looking at all of that instrument panel and the 4 engines, and a heavy bomber. It looked like it was impossible to assimilate what we needed, but we found that the transition was not difficult at all. B-17 became very familiar to us after a while. We were able to handle it quite easily.
From Roswell, New Mexico, you went on to what theater of operations?
Well,
what approximate date?
We were still in the United States. It was around, I think, August or September 1942. And from Roswell, we went to Norman, Oklahoma for further training with our crew. The gunners were doing training and gunnery practice. The pilots were flying them around, and we had navigational training as well as gunnery practice in Norman, Oklahoma. From Norman, Oklahoma, we went to a staging area in Nebraska where all crews from all over the United States met, and then were sent out to various places in the United States before embarking overseas. Our particular group went to New York, and we were instructed to be on call while we were moving around New York City and observing sites like any traveler, any
kid.
I'm trying to think of the word.
Tourist.
Tourist. Thank you. Any tourist. I'd never been in New York before, and a lot of my family who I'd never known were in New York, and I was able to meet them for the first time, and found that I didn't care for too many of them except for one. And we had a good time in New York. And then we got I was going with an opera singer in New York. We were told to leave a telephone number where we could be reached and be ready to leave on moment's notice to go overseas. And about 2 o'clock in the morning, I was in my girlfriend's apartment, and we got a call to ready, let's go, folks. And I had to take off in the middle of the night, early in the morning, and go overseas. We flew overseas to Stone, England.
Where were you stationed in England after Stone?
Stone was a dispersing area for different groups, and my group was the 452nd Bomb Group, which was stationed in Defton Green, which is near Norwich, England. And that's where I stayed through the whole, for my part of the war.
Can you tell me about what your feelings were now that you molded with your crew, about your first mission? Like, what were your thoughts, and what time did you get up, and how many planes were in the Armada, and how long did it take to get assembled? Because we know that the U.S. flew during the daytime and the British flew at night. Is that correct?
That's right. That's correct. Yes, we were doing strategic bombing during the daytime. The U.S. felt that was a more effective way of fighting the war from the air than the English did. The English had their own thoughts. It turned out later that the U.S. was quite effective in strategic bombing, daylight bombing over Germany. We had somewhat of a disheartening appearance in our first mission. We were assigned to our Quonset huts, and we found that we were replacing a crew that had just been killed. It was just shot down over Germany, and you get mixed feelings about something like that. We were replacing a crew that's been killed, and that was our first mission. Was over during Germany. We were flying deputy, which means that you're not part of the strike force, but you're flying in the back of the squadron of about 3 squadrons of 13 planes, each would be 39 bombers. We were flying at number 40, but not part of the bombing group. Unless one of the planes became disabled or couldn't continue, we were to take its place. And that's exactly what happened. One of the planes fell out, we were able to take its place, and we flew our first mission as the deputy and dropped our first bomb load on that first mission.
What were your feelings?
Well, I personally was terrified in every mission before we ever got off the ground, and as an aircraft commander, I had to try to disguise my feelings the best I could because I wanted to inspire confidence in my crew. And I tried not to show what I really was feeling inside, which was desperation and terror, especially when parts of the piece of the plane start falling off from anti-aircraft, and you see the damage being done to your plane, and you just hope that none of the personnel are damaged. As it was, we came back from every mission with damage to the plane, and so did everybody else. But my feelings, to answer your question, my feelings were absolutely terrified on every mission before we started. We would get a wake-up call around 12 o'clock midnight, maybe 1 o'clock in the morning. We'd go to the mess hall and get some powdered eggs and some Spam and coffee, and off we go. The pilots are briefed in a separate pilot's room where they're briefed on the mission. There's a very dramatic moment when the briefing officer will reveal the map on the wall as to where the target was for the day. And you hear a lot of groans or a lot of happy sighs depending on the hazard and the type of mission it was. If it was Berlin or South Central Germany, you hear a lot of groans. If it was just a mission over the English Channel where the exposure to anti-aircraft is minimum, you hear a lot of cheers and hand clapping. So it would depend on the target.
On this first mission, would you say that there were several hundred planes involved, and then did you have air cover? Did you know that you had air cover, or were you informed that you had, or could you hear them?
Well, there were more than several hundred planes. There was quite a few, maybe everywhere from 500 to 1,000 bombers. And the air cover consisted mostly of P-47s at that time. They could stay in almost all the way to the target. If it was in South Central Germany, they'd have to break off because they got low on fuel, and they couldn't stay with us all the way. And that didn't. That changed with the advent of the P-51, which had the fuel capacity and the range and the altitude and maneuverability. Probably one of the best airplanes ever designed by. It was designed by North American and was very well received by the bomber crews, because we love to see the air cover take us all the way into the target and all the way back to hold off the German aircraft.
You speak so well of the P-51. Would you have rather been a P-51 pilot than a B-17 sitting duck?
Well, I think that you could ask the question, would I rather be a fighter pilot than a bomber pilot? The answer is absolutely. The fighter pilots had a field day over there. They, in fact, they volunteered for second tours. They were having such a good time, and they felt sorry for the bomber pilots who had to sit and do no maneuverability over the target, and were sitting ducks for anti-aircraft. So to answer your question, certainly the amount of danger and hazard to the fighter pilots was much less than the bomber pilots, in my opinion.
Okay, your first mission is complete. You're landing back in England, safe landing. How did you feel?
We felt a sigh of relief once we came back over the channel, because there was no enemy, there was no anti-aircraft, no enemy aircraft. And once you reach the Normandy or over the edge of the North Sea or the English Channel, and so we felt a sigh of relief. We felt that, at least for that mission, we were safe. And as I recall, the first mission, I don't think we had any losses in our first mission. I think all the planes got back, as I recall.
I understand on your 13th mission, 13th for good luck, you had quite an experience. Can you relate where the target was and where you got this awakening?
The target that day was Eindhoven, Holland, occupied Holland. And on the way over to the target, we got hit by anti-aircraft and we lost 3 engines, and so we were not able to maintain formation with our bomb group, and so we had to abort. And the signal to abort flight group was to lower your landing gear. That's the signal that we're leaving the formation, which we did. And on leaving, we got hit rather severely by anti-aircraft, and we had about 25,000 feet, and we had one outboard engine left. I was unable to maintain a steady flight because the plane kept veering off with this outboard engine. I had struggling with it to maintain a straight flight. As it was, we were miles off course. We had a couple of of our fighters that picked us up, and they flashed us. I could read Morse code in those days, and we were communicating with each other through Morse code, and they said that they'd have to leave us pretty soon because they were low on fuel. And I called the crew, and I said, look, you have a choice here. You can vote, and you can vote to land here and be prisoners of war, or you can ditch in the North Sea. What do you want to do? And everybody voted to ditch, and that's what we did. And it probably turned out to be the best thing because the crew told me the fuselage is full of gas vapor. I believe if we tried to crash land, a spark could have touched it off, and it's possible we could have had a lot of trouble with explosion. As for the ditching, we trained for ditching, and the crew was all, you throw out all your armament, you throw out everything you can to lighten the load as much as possible. And
the fuel also?
No, we didn't. No, we wanted as much fuel as we could get. We were hoping to get back to England, but I knew we couldn't. I talked to the navigator. Navigator and I figured out we had no way of getting. We could not. We were losing 500 feet a minute. There's no way to get back. And I knew we were going to be in the North Sea. And my problem in landing the ship in the North Sea is that I was not able to see the water because spray was hitting the windshield, and I couldn't see. And so I had my head stuck out of the cockpit to try to see the water, and as a result, I didn't make a very good landing. I landed kind of high, and we pancaked down, and the ship broke in half right at the radio room, and both ends came up. If you remember the film Titanic, you know, both ends of the ship came up. That's exactly what happened to our plane. Both ends came up and went down. We had about a minute for everybody to get out, and everybody was able to get out. These B-17s are equipped with life rafts, one stowed on each side after the Bombay, and the first man out of the hatch pulls the release. These life rafts pop out, and they inflate as soon as they hit the water automatically. And we were able to get in those life rafts. But the North Sea was very, very cold, and we were suffering from hypothermia. We didn't know if anybody would pick us up. We saw some planes in the distance. We didn't know if they were friend or foe, but we all we had was some flare guns. We didn't have time to get any equipment out of the plane because it sank too fast. But we did have flare guns. We shot them, and we didn't know if they were enemy or not. And they turned away and left, so we were isolated there. We saw some friendly dolphin, and we thought they were welcome to see because they didn't present any hazard to us. So
Did you have radar?
We had no radar. We did not have radar. We did have a direction finder called a Mae West in those days, which you could crank and send out a signal. But unfortunately, we didn't have time to get it out of the plane. If we had, they could have picked us up immediately. But we didn't. We were not able to do that. It was just we were in the water for about 11 hours, and the crew was they were suffering from cold as we all were. We had prospects of spending the night there in the North Sea when all of a sudden two Lockheed Hudson British Air Sea Rescue came out and flew right over us and circled around and flashed down in code that the launch would be out in an hour. They also radioed for some fighters to come out to protect us from any German fighters, and the two P-51s came out and circled around and stayed with us all the time. And the British Air Sea Rescue planes, they were Lockheed Hudsons flown by the British, they dropped another large raft which had some English supplies in, which was not too good, except for one thing. There was one large canvas bag, it's about as big as this table, and you put seawater in it, and it got real hot. We took our boots off and we put our feet on that thing, and that was great. And then the launch finally came out and picked us up. And so I went over to the captain, and I said, well, how did you find us? He said, I can't tell you, it's classified. I said, what do you mean you can't tell me? We've been out here for hours. He said, all right. I said, I'll tell you if you promise not to tell your crew. I said, I promised. How the hell did you find us? Well, he said at that time radar was highly classified. It was brand new. It was invented by the British, and it was top secret. And these Lockheed Hudson planes were equipped with radar, and they got a heading on us. I believe, I'm not sure about this, but I believe our life rafts were lined with foil. I think so, but I'm not sure. But somehow they got a heading and came right over us and flew around. So I'm sitting here with you, Shell, because of radar.
Wonderful. How long did you stay off duty, and when did you start flying missions again?
Well, they were very magnanimous in giving us 10 days leave to go to a rest home in Southampton, England, which was like a paradise. We had something like 5 meals a day, and Red Cross girls, and jeeps and bikes, and just about every kind of recreation that you could think of. So we had a good time for 10 days, but we had to look forward to going back and finishing up 22 more missions, because at that time a tour was considered 35 missions. This was the 13th, so we had 22 more to look forward to.
When you got back to duty, did you have any other close calls in the rest of your tour of duty?
Well, if you want to call it close calls, hit and damage from enemy aircraft, yes, we had it in every mission. Some more than others. We were in Berlin twice, which was a heavily fortified target, and most of our targets were the IG Farben synthetic oil plants, the ball bearing plants, the airfields, and the marshalling yards. The ball bearing plants were considered as an ME. ME stood for maximum effort in those days. And orders, as I understand, orders came out from the White House for an ME, because they considered the target so vital that they wanted to dispatch enough bombers to make sure that they were able to hit the target. In those kind of raids, they dispatched everywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 heavy bombers on that particular target. But the Germans were so good at prefab, they could get hit, but they'd be back in business a few days later. We have to go and do it all over again.
Can you tell me how many missions you completed after this, and what was the name of your aircraft?
Well, we completed 35 missions. The name of our aircraft was Big Barn Smell. Was a name, one of our crew members who's from Pratt, Kansas, a farmer, and you can guess where he developed that kind of name for our plane.
Tell me something about your ground crew. You came back flying up to 10 hours a day, shot up, needing lots of repair. What do you attribute this to, the indebtedness of this crew to get your plane?
Shell, I'll tell you, the ground crew was magnificent. I've always regretted that I never kept in touch with the ground crew. We were so intent on finishing our missions that and our Quonset huts are quite a ways from the garage or the hangar where they repaired planes. So I never did really get to know them, except just before I took off. I suddenly knew the name. I don't remember it now. But I always regretted that we never were able to, after the war, get in touch with our ground crew until lately. We have a monthly newsletter that comes out and gives us information about our particular group, which is the 452nd Bomb Group. And in one of the letters to the editor was a member of our particular ground crew for our particular plane. And I was able to get in touch with him, and I now can tell you that I'm really looking forward to greeting and meeting every one of the members of our ground crew, and I would personally want to thank them for doing such a great job, because our planes would always come back shot up full of holes, some damage to the engines, and they worked all night. They had those planes ready to go, patched up, ready to go, tip-top shape the very next morning for the next mission. And they did a remarkable job.
The B-17s, as we all know, they built over 12,000 of them. There's only 13,000 of them around today. We have
13,
here.
not the 13,000, 13.
13.
Yes.
We have 13 aircraft left, which one we have right here. It gives me a thrill. We did see it Saturday taking off.
Yes,
they do
we did.
fly it. I hope you get a chance to fly. Can you tell me something about the 17F and the 17G, which is the improved version that you had the chance to fly both?
We flew the B-17F for the first 10 missions, and the B-17G was a vastly improved model. It added a chin turret, which was vital to our defense effort, because most of the time the German fighters would come in 12 o'clock high, and you needed some firepower in the front to ward off the enemy aircraft. So the chin turret addition to the B-17G model was a vast improvement. The other improvements were that the B-17F model was hydraulically operated for the most part, and if you lose a hydraulic line by anti-aircraft, you can lose your whole system. The B-17G was electrically operated, and you could lose a cable or two and still keep going. So the third big improvement as far as the pilot was concerned is that the flying characteristics was so much improved because they did not use paint, camouflage paint on the B-17G, and paint weighs a lot, weighs a ton, and the flying characteristics was much better.
What medals did you receive?
Well, I got the DFC, Distinguished Flying Cross, for successful ditching and for our whole crew surviving. I got the Air Medal with 6 oak leaf clusters and the Purple Heart, and a Presidential Citation, which I'm not sure what that was for, and some African type of citation, which is remote to me. I'm not quite sure what it was.
But you took it.
I accepted it, yes.
After you completed your 35 missions, your tour of duty, what happened then?
They had me instruct new crews on blind.
Where was this?
This was in England, and they kept me over there as an instructor of new crews just coming in on blind control approach, which means that the student would sit behind a hood and try to land the plane on instruments or bring it down to 500 feet on instruments, and I, as the instructor, would be sitting in the right seat to make sure that he knew what he was doing, that he wouldn't get in trouble. So I did that for quite some time as an instructor, and then I finally got back, was slated to go back to the United States and flew back on a C-54.
What did you do in the States?
Well, we got
What year was that?
That was...
the war was still on.
Yeah, the war was still going on. That was like November, December. Actually, I can remember quite well. It was New Year's Eve, 1944, December 31st, 1944, and we were scheduled to land at Dulles Airport in Washington, D.C., and fortunately, Dulles was closed due to the weather conditions, and we were diverted to New York, which was great for me, and we're very lucky because that's exactly where I wanted to go. And in New York, I was able to meet up with my opera singer again, and we had a great time. I promptly went AWOL for 10 days because we felt that we were pretty lucky to survive, and we didn't think that any penalty we received for AWO would mean much. And so for 10 days I did nothing but roam around New York with my opera singer. We had a great time. Then I finally checked in, and the sergeant asked me, "Where the hell you been?" And I told him that, well, I wanted to take a few days off. And nothing happened. He just asked me where I wanted to be stationed, and I said, well, the closest thing to home was Santa Ana, and that's exactly where they sent me. And Santa Ana at that time was R&R, Rest and Recreation. And I would tell you, Shell, that after coming back from overseas, it was a great war for me, because we just had a good time and without any of the hazards of flying combat.
I know this has been a grueling session here, bringing back these good memories and bad memories, but I wondered if you'd like to say a few words in closing this beautiful interview.
Well, to you, my crew members, I want to thank each and every one of you for a job well done. Certainly it was to our benefit that we all survived, and I'm sure we're all pleased about that, and I'm looking forward to seeing each and every one of you in our next annual reunion, where we can continue with events and things that happened during our experience over there, which is just coming up now, because you told me things that I never knew until we met, and I hope that we can continue to do that.